Hello again. Yesterday we covered most of the sections up until Göbekli Tepe, and today we are going to continue with the details and the interpretations in Göbekli Tepe. So today we are going to finish in this second part, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I am sure it's going to be less than an hour. Yesterday we looked at the world map, and we also looked at the location of Anatolia at the meeting point of the three continents. And then we looked at the map of Turkey, a peninsula surrounded by seas in three sides. And we talked about its geography a little bit. It would be easy for us to understand the topic of Mesopotamia and Göbekli Tepe and the transition from the Paleolithic into the Neolithic ages. We also talked about the skull bones, which were found by coincidence in the inner Aegean region in a city called Denizli, in a marble quarry. And these skull bones are believed to be belonging to a 1.1 million year old Homo erectus, which started its migration all the way from Africa, and on the way to Asia or Europe, passing through Anatolia, we were able to find the bones of this man, the Denizli man. A closer look at the same skull cap. And then we talked about the Anatolian Civilisations Museum in Ankara with the Paleolithic period sections on it, the lower Paleolithic and the middle Paleolithic and then the upper Paleolithic. And these three phases of the Paleolithic age, the early Stone Age, represent the three different groups of early forms of humanity. So the first one was Homo erectus, and the second one, which came all the way from Europe, was the Neanderthal, and the last one was the Homo sapiens, the nearest ancestor of the humankind. And we looked at their tools and what kind of tools they used and so on. And also we mentioned about two very important caves located in Turkey today. One in Istanbul, that is the Yarımburgaz cave, and the other one is near Antalya, and it is the Karain cave. In these two caves, they found traces of the Homo erectus and the skull bones of the Neanderthal and traces of the Homo sapiens going as early as 300,000 years in the cave in Istanbul, and approximately the Middle Stone Age in the Karain cave in Antalya. And this is a picture which is on display in the Museum of Antalya. That is also a bone belonging to a Neanderthal from the Middle Paleolithic age. The transition period between the Paleolithic and the Neolithic was the Mesolithic, and the most important site for the Mesolithic period in Turkey is the Öküz İni cave, and they found some ox gravings in this place. That's why it was called as the Ox Cave. Then we mentioned about the two rivers also mentioned in the Bible, the Euphrates and the Tigris, originating from the high mountains of Anatolia and going down to Syria and Iraq, and eventually, finally, pouring into the Persian Sea. And the land in between these two rivers is named as Mesopotamia, and this land has been the cradle of civilizations, and this has been the place where the hunter-gatherers of the earlier age were able to obtain seeds from the naturally grown crops in that area. And after that, they didn't need to run after the food anymore. And then they started settling down, and they started settled life. They started agriculture. They started the domestication of animals as well. And one of the earliest places for the settlement, where the settlement started, goes back to 11,000 BC, and this is in the southeastern part of Turkey, in northern Mesopotamia. And they found some villages of the early settlers in that archaeological site there. And then we looked at the map, the Neolithic map of Anatolia. And the Neolithic age, roughly speaking, started in about 10,000 BC and continued until about 5,500. First 2,000 years were pre-pottery, and after 2000, starting from approximately 8000 BCE, pottery period started, and little villages started appearing in this area first, and from here, in thousands of years, little by little, the Neolithic people of the upper Mesopotamian area started spreading around, and it took them like 2,000 years to get to central Anatolia, and another 1,000 or 2,000 years to get for them to the Marmara Sea region, and maybe one more 1,000 years or 2,000 years more until they reached Europe and farther away. So the migration was going on all around the Mesopotamian area. Then we looked at the aerial photograph of the Göbekli Tepe area, and this is where the excavation started. And I also spoke about the story of the villager who found a statue there and who took them to the museum in the nearby town in 1986. And the museum authorities were not familiar with these kinds of statues in those times, so they just ignored, they just put them away in the storage place. But after about 10 years, the archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who had great experience in the past 10-15 years from a nearby archaeological site, by coincidence happened to see these statues in the museum in Şanlıurfa, and he immediately identified them to be Neolithic age artifacts, and he found out where they came from, and he got the necessary permissions, and he started the excavations in Göbekli Tepe. And this is how Göbekli Tepe looked after the excavations started. And these were the times when the excavations were continuing and we were allowed to walk through these walkways in the site. We were so close to the stones and so on. It is not the case anymore. It is very much under preservation now. And recently they have built this modern-looking awning to protect all what they are digging there. Then we looked at the general plan of Göbekli Tepe. I mentioned that the first 6 circular enclosures that they excavated were named with letters. The first one that they excavated is letter A. It is the circular one in here. And then letter B. So enclosure B is here. Enclosure C is even larger. Enclosure D there, the most picturesque one is this one, and then E and F are here. By scanning the underground parts of the whole area of Göbekli Tepe, scientists now know that there are more than 20 or 22 circular enclosures, some of which are still waiting to be excavated in the upcoming years. Then, this is where we stopped yesterday. We were talking about these T-shaped stones. This is what they found in the area, and the total number of these T-shaped stones, these are the megaliths, these are the steles, the burial steles maybe. These stones, the T-shaped stones, the questions were, what were they made of? What kind of tools were they using in order to make these T-shaped stones? And how were they able to shape these stones? These are the questions to be answered now. Obviously, all of these T-shaped stones are made out of limestone. Yesterday, I was explaining that limestone is easily found in nature, very common stone. It is very hard when it is dry, but it becomes a little softer when it becomes wet. So this is an advantage, and the early people, they used this advantage. Obviously, they cut these stones from the natural rocks. But how did they do that? In order to cut these stones, of course, they used other tools. And these tools would be made out of flint stone, which is harder than limestone. That's why it is easy to work with it. And also, they used sometimes obsidian. Obsidian is a volcanic glass. It's available only in the volcanic areas, and the nearest obsidian bed to the Göbekli Tepe area is 250 kilometers farther away. 250 kilometers means 150 miles farther away. It is unbelievable. These Göbekli Tepe people would be bringing their tools or the raw material for their tools from distances like 150 miles farther away or 250 kilometers. What they would do, they have the tools, they have the rock, and now they have to make the T-shaped stone. As you see, they would draw it on the rock, and then by using chisel kind of things which are made out of stones like the flint and the obsidian, they are going to make little holes or lines all around the T shape. And then they are going to put some pieces of wood, soft wood, the kind of wood which would absorb water very easily. And then fill these sections with water. So after a while, those little sticks that they would put inside would swell. And after a while, they would add more water, swell more, and finally, those pieces of sticks which are put in the holes on the sides would crack the whole T-shaped stone from the rock bed. And later on they would shape it up and they would have their T-shaped stones there. How were they able to carry these? How were they transported? Obviously, these are sometimes a few tons of weight or sometimes 20 tons. These are very heavy stones, and the way that they carry it should be like this. Use wood, round ones, circular ones, so that they are going to roll it on these wood, and then they would be able to carry it for distances. As you see, when they pull the stone, they are going to take the wood from behind and put it in the front, and take it from behind and to put it in the front, and it's going to continue like that. Where did these stones come from? How far away were they? Or did they do it right in the spot? Of course, archaeologists looked at the quarries, stone quarries or limestone quarries for these T-shaped stones, and they found some only a little farther away, which is like 500, 600 meters away from Göbekli Tepe. Speaking about a T-shaped stone weighing 20 tons, how would they carry them? It is not that easy. From all these, we understand that these hunter-gatherers of the Neolithic period had division of labor. They couldn't do it like this. Come on, Pauls, let's do it all together. It doesn't work like that. How can you carry a big stone which is weighing like 20 tons for 500 meters? Impossible. So obviously they should have had division of labor, and they should have coordination among themselves, and they should have organization among themselves as well. Not only that, they should have some people, like high-ranking people, giving orders to them. So those people should be asking the others, you do this, you do that, you carry this, you come here, otherwise it is impossible. So high-ranking people and hierarchy is obvious in here. And also, rather than groups of people who are equal to each other, definitely there were elite groups of people as opposed to equal groups. These are very early signs from the hunter-gatherers of Göbekli Tepe as well. And the so-called primitive people of 12,000 years ago needed large public buildings, and these are big buildings, and these are not simple homes for them, and they needed these public buildings, and they invested on them. These are the conclusions that we can gather from Göbekli Tepe at first hand. Let's look at the plan of the place again. Generally speaking, in these circular enclosures, there are T-shaped stones surrounding the two freestanding ones in the middle. And in approximately every circular enclosure, there are 10, 12 of these stones. And the two in the middle are freestanding ones. And if we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, The two freestanding ones in the center, they all face southeast. As you see, this is the face of it. This side is the face. I'm going to explain it in a minute later on. And they are facing southeast. Only in enclosure F, the two central T-shaped stones are facing southwest. I don't know what this means, but this is what we can observe in Göbekli Tepe. This is a three-dimensional reconstruction drawing of the first four enclosures. This is enclosure A, B, C, D. This one is the smallest one. It has a diameter of approximately 10-15 meters. This one is a little larger, like 20 meters. This is 30 meters, and this is 30 meters as well. As I said, these two are the most picturesque. This is enclosure A, and you can see the T-shaped stones in the surrounding section in a circle, and the two in the middle are the freestanding ones. And this one is damaged a little bit on the top. You know why? Because that part of the stone was sticking out in the agricultural land there. And the farmer, Şavak Yıldız, was trying to break it off or take it out with no success. When the archaeologists in 1963 were passing through the area, they must have seen these upper sections of some of the stones in the field there as well. But the farmer, how would he know that it was going down to the ground for many meters and it was impossible for him to take it out? It was all buried in those times. Let's look at enclosure B. It is even in a better condition. See the circle here, and then the two freestanding ones in the center. And some of them have some animal figures as well, and we're going to talk about these animals too. This is enclosure C. This is more picturesque, and I would like to draw your attention to a very ornate relief of an animal here, like a reptile in here. We're going to have a closer look at this later, and there is a figure of fox in here as well. And this is the most picturesque one, enclosure D, and the T-shaped stones are the largest in here, and lots of figures of animals all around. And this one is, in comparison to the others, this is enclosure F, and much smaller one. And in 2011, the National Geographic magazine was featuring Göbekli Tepe in the cover. Look at the titles that they used. The title was The Birth of Religion. What a title. And also the words First Temple. Klaus Schmidt was able to draw the attention of media very successfully, and he didn't mind when media used very extraordinary titles for Göbekli Tepe like this. The Birth of Religion. What an expression. Thanks to these kinds of titles, Göbekli Tepe was able to draw a lot of attention from all over the world, and many people in the world today regard Göbekli Tepe to be one of the most important discoveries of our age, for example. Was it really a temple? The word first temple. This is a very controversial topic. Lots of people have lots of different ideas about this. Was it a temple or not, and so on. Definitely, this place, a group of enclosures, gigantic size, with the T-shapes and with the animal figures, size-wise, these are not simple homes. And archaeologist Klaus Schmidt never found any traces for a temple in here. So they were not homes, probably they were temples. This is the easiest comment that we would make. But to be able to call a temple as a temple, there are a few requirements there. You need a god there. You need something to worship. There are no signs for that yet. That's why it is not that easy to name the enclosures, the buildings in Göbekli Tepe as temples. They found some butchered animal bones in the whole area of Göbekli Tepe. Butchered animal bones, how did they understand? Because there were cut marks on the bones. That's why they understood that they were butchered. And also, recently, they found a container. There are a few of these containers, and one of these containers was a 160-liter capacity stone container with a residue at the bottom of a fermented drink or something. By looking at this evidence, archaeologists said that if it was beer, if it was wine, maybe just simply bread, but a large container. So it means people are gathering here from all around, and maybe some religious ceremonies, some rituals, maybe some social gatherings. Definitely there's something like that. This is not the place where they used to live. This is the place where they gathered. The safest comment that we would be able to make about the buildings in the Göbekli Tepe area would be Göbekli Tepe was a ritual center where the upper Mesopotamian people from distances like 200 kilometers, 250 kilometers farther away gathering up. I think for now, rather than saying it was a temple, better to say a gathering place, or either social, even commercial, or religious gatherings. Klaus Schmidt, before he passed away, always suggested that Göbekli Tepe was not a settlement place because he didn't find traces of homes there, and there was no water. The nearest water was far away. And he never found any burials there. Just recently, they found two human heads, but still they haven't been interpreted yet. But other than that, no burials. So by looking at these evidence, Klaus Schmidt suggested that Göbekli Tepe was not a settlement place. However, after Klaus Schmidt, there's a new archaeologist from Belgium, and his name is Mr. Lee Clare. And he recently wrote in a magazine that he found a large cistern, like 8 meters in diameter, or 25 feet in diameter in this picture, with some little water channels around, an interesting find. This is a new one. And then a group of circular buildings attached to each other and growing. This is what it is in here. And he said they also found a few hearts for fire, beads made of stones and bones, and tools made out of bones. These are some signs of living in here. So by looking at these, maybe we can say that, or we can start thinking of a settlement in Göbekli Tepe. This is maybe coming up. What makes Göbekli Tepe such an important site is not only its long history going back to 12,000 years ago. We understand that the so-called primitive hunter-gatherers were actually capable of making such monumental public buildings. So this is another conclusion about Göbekli Tepe. This is again Enclosure D. I kept saying this is the most picturesque one. This is still like it is today. Maybe we don't have this section in the middle of the two freestanding megaliths in the center. So what they did, the same Enclosure D, they made a replica of it in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. This is the replica. See, these are the T-shaped stones in the circle, and the two freestanding ones, which are higher than the surrounding ones, in the middle. These two central T-shaped megaliths are fitting in some kind of holes, like a socket in here. So the holes in here are like 30 centimeters deep, like a foot, and in every circular enclosure, the two central T-shaped stones are fitting into these holes. maybe that is the way how they can stand. This is a different angle for the same replica in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. As you see, the surrounding buildings are seen better in this, from this angle. And these are the two central T-shaped stones. You can see the height of these stones in comparison to the height of people inside the enclosure. The two central megaliths placed in the sockets are actually the earliest known monumental stones in the whole world. 20 tons weight and many meters high, and they are accepted to be the earliest, the oldest known monumental stones in the whole world. Now I'm going to show you another picture. This is not from Göbekli Tepe, this is from Nevali Çöri. You remember from yesterday, Nevali Çöri was the archaeological site where Klaus Schmidt was digging before he came to Göbekli Tepe. And this is an enclosure, but this one is not a circle one. This is a rectangular enclosure with still the T-shaped stones in the four sides of the building, and there are two more freestanding T-shaped stones in the center. But what is important in this one is that this is the real one in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. This is not a replica. This is just next to the replica. But this one is the original one. They didn't keep the original stones in the original location because the original site is underwater today because of an irrigation project. It is under the Atatürk Dam on the Euphrates River. So this is also interesting to note. Now we're looking at one of the two most picturesque ones. This is Enclosure C. And let's see what we are going to notice. There is a circle in here. And these are the T-shaped stones placed in the circle. And these are the two T-shaped stones in the center. And the surrounding ones are connected to each other with a wall. A wall is connecting them all. The wall is made out of stone. The two central ones are freestanding. They are not attached to any walls. And they are placed in the holes, in the bases in the ground. And part of the wall inside extends like a bench to sit on. You see, this is the higher wall, and inside the wall, still part of the wall, but it is as low as a bench, as if you would be able to sit on it. This is also an interesting point to note. And in this one, actually, we have to notice better. There are two rows of walls. One row of wall in the small circle, and then the second circle is around it, and there is a corridor between the two walls. Were these circular buildings covered with roofs? This is a good question. As we mentioned earlier, these are all made out of limestone. Limestone is not as strong as marble, for example. Even marble, after some years of snow and real bad weather conditions, they get deteriorated, they get ruined. Limestone would never live for hundreds of years, for 500 years, for 600 years. These are the durations for the Göbekli Tepe enclosures that they estimate. They wouldn't live for 500 years. By looking at this, obviously, they were all covered. So what kind of a roof system would they have? Take a look. The walls are coming up as high as the upper parts of the T-shaped stones on the sides, and the two central ones are higher than the ones around. Probably the roof would be resting on the two central ones. And it is thought that these enclosures were once upon a time covered. Did people gathering in Göbekli Tepe area, if it was a gathering place, were they able to go inside these buildings? This is also a good question. These are, 30 meter is the diameter, 20 meter is the diameter, but still these are not so big. these are still some small buildings. So we don't think that people coming here, people gathering here would be able to fit in these places easily. Probably they stayed outside, and if it was a ritual function, maybe there were high-ranking people inside making connections with the people outside and the interior world, whatever it was. How many of these enclosures were used at the same time? This is also a very big question mark, because we don't know if these enclosures were built 1 by 1, or 2 by 2, or 5 by 5. It is never possible to know this. Maybe they had a few of them here, and while they were getting deteriorated, they built new ones there. We don't know that. So maybe all 22 of them were standing at the same time. So it is not known yet. The other question, were they all built at the same time? And this is what I just answered. Another point to add here, another question, were these enclosures buried by people? Yes, Klaus Schmidt suggested it to be so. In about 8000 before the Common Era, these enclosures were not destroyed by natural ways, but they were buried by people systematically. How did Klaus Schmidt conclude this? Because he looked around and he didn't see any higher places around. This was already on the hillside of the highest hill in the area. There is nothing to come from up. Also, many of these T-shaped stones were still standing. If there was an earthquake, if there was a natural disaster, it wouldn't be possible for many of these T-shaped stones to be standing in their original places. By looking at that, Klaus Schmidt suggested that they were not destroyed by natural ways, but they were buried by people systematically. They were buried with rubble, and they studied the rubble, the content of the rubble as well. And in the rubble, pieces from stone plates, tools, or limestone were found, and also animal and human bones in the rubble they found. These are very striking facts. The buildings are in such a good condition. It is because of the fact that they were buried by people systematically. But why would they bury these circular enclosures? Probably, if these were sacred for them, we believe so, they wanted to preserve them. They wanted to protect them. That's why they didn't want them to be damaged. Maybe they ran out time-wise, and just like burying people, they buried these buildings, and as a result, we are still able to see these buildings still standing. But here comes another controversial question. Are these really buried, or is it possible that they might have been destroyed naturally? This is the question to ask. Like also Schmidt suggested, the buildings were not filled at once. They were filled in various times, not only once, more than once. That's why the new archaeological team there, they say the buildings might have been filled with landslides or mud flows occurring at different times because of natural disasters. So this is a new topic to discuss, and we're not sure about this yet, but probably in the upcoming years we're going to have more precise answers to these questions. In 2018, Göbekli Tepe was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List, and it also, of course, helps the promotion of the site internationally. The Ministry of Culture in Turkey, or Turkey as a country, declared 2019 as the year of Göbekli Tepe. So we're trying to promote it to the whole world with great efforts. In all of the international meetings and fairs and so on, we always promote Göbekli Tepe. An interesting fact to add about Göbekli Tepe is that more than 100,000 pieces of bones were studied during these past years. And from the cut marks, many of these bones were believed to be bones of butchered animals. From the cut marks, they were able to tell that. And more than 60% of the bones belong to gazelles, edible animal, 60%. And 40%, the remaining 40% of the bones belong to boar, sheep, deer, and birds like vulture, duck, crane, and goose. If we continue looking at the details in the circular enclosures, coming back to the replica in the museum, we also noticed that the floor of these enclosures come in two different categories. The first category, it is the bedrock. So bedrock, it is the main rock, it is carved there, and it is, of course, automatically waterproof. But another category that we come across in some of the floors of these enclosures is that they are terrazzo floors. Stones are fixed with mortar and then made with burnt lime to fix them, to make them harder, strong, and they are polished as well. It is like making a coarse mosaic floor. And these are also waterproof. And this technique, by looking at 10,000 BC, this is a very advanced technique. So what we can conclude, the floors of the circular enclosures are either the rock itself or the terrazzo floors. This is enclosure B, and see the floor, it is made with the terrazzo. And not only the floor, take a look at the little holes on top of the T-shaped stones. This is very common in most of the places. We don't know the answer to this question yet, but it is only estimated to be that these are the upper parts of the stones which might have been once in a while on the surface, and they were damaged with the natural weather conditions, with the farming people, and so on. Coming back to the replica, the two, actually all of these T-shaped stones are believed to represent human bodies, standing human bodies. Each T-shaped stone is a human body. So if this is a body, this is going to be the head. But the face is going to be on this side. The face is not on the side, it is in the front, in here. And we're going to look at the front, the facade of the bodies as well. This is the front. This is the front here as well. And they are all representing human bodies. This is another angle to look at the freestanding stones in the middle. This is the front. It should be the face here, and the face should be here. But let me notice one thing. See this? This is the arm of the human body. Let me go back. This is the left arm. This is the left arm. And the hands are coming to the front, waist level. Go back to the other picture. Right arm, face, something like a belt in here. And look at the figures on the belt. And you are also going to notice the fingers in here. Let's take a closer look at that. See, the arms are coming from the two sides, and the hands are coming close to each other, just above the belt. This is like a buckle in the belt. This is the other one. The two hands are coming. You can see the fingers there. You can see the fingers here, and you can see the buckle of the belt. And right underneath the buckle, an animal skin, probably belonging to something like a fox, together with the tail and the two hind legs in here and in here. See this one, a close-up. The right hand comes from the right side and makes a curve towards the front, and these are the fingers, and these are the fingers of the left hand. Likewise, belonging to the other stone, The fingers are coming close to each other, just above the very sophisticated, very interesting, and we still don't know what they mean, motifs going all the way around the body on the belt. This one is one of my favorite statues. It is not from Göbekli Tepe. It is from the city center in Şanlıurfa. They just found it recently, like 10 years ago and so on, during the construction of a house by coincidence there. And it's been taken to the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. It consists of pieces, as you see. They attach these pieces together. This guy is like 180 centimeters tall. And the age of this statue should be like 9,600 years BCE. And this statue is accepted to be, worldwide, to be the earliest human statue life-size. The earliest life-size human statue in the whole world. And look at the shape of the arms. The two arms are making a V, and then the two hands are coming close in the waist level. And you can even see the sexual organ right underneath. There is a motif in here. This may be representing his rank. We don't know. He doesn't have a mouth. He has a big nose. And the eyes are made out of obsidian. Black volcanic glass, obsidian. Obsidian which was brought to the Göbekli Tepe and Şanlıurfa area from 250 kilometers farther away. This guy is called as the Şanlıurfa man. Let's go back to Göbekli Tepe again. There are hundreds of pictures of animals. Sometimes they are like reliefs, sometimes they are made with carvings. But very interestingly, hundreds of animal figures are all around. But these animals are not mythological kind of animals. These animals are very simple animals from daily life. See, there is a boar here, there is a fox here, there are some birds here. These should be some maybe cranes. Some other birds are here, snakes are here. There's a scorpion in here, snakes are here. Other birds, another boar, birds, like an ox, a fox, like a crane maybe. And this is a very high relief, like a reptile, very elegantly made, as you notice. Another fox, this is the mouth, and here are the ears, and this is the tail in here. And in most of the figures, we see the sexual organ in erection. This is a very masculine community also. See the ducks in a row. Another wild boar maybe. You can see the teeth in here. And another fox here. This one is very interesting again. See, there's a vulture here. There are a few more birds. Vulture is holding a round thing. Here's a scorpion. There's another bird. And there's a figure of a little man with no head. No head here. And this vulture is carrying a round thing. It could be the head of this man. You know, in early cultures, thousands of years after Göbekli Tepe, in the area of Anatolia or in more Asian parts, there is a very common tradition. They would take the dead people to places where the vultures would easily reach them, leave them there for a few days, and they would eat all the flesh, and the remaining bones will be taken away from there, and then they would bury the remaining bones of these people. So these are parts of the rituals of the ancient times. Göbekli Tepe people, by looking at so many figures from nature, we could say Göbekli Tepe people might be worshipping nature like in the shamanistic cultures. You know, this is just an interpretation. We can never be sure about these kinds of interpretations. Now I would like to draw your attention to a very important feature. We are talking about 10,000 to 9,000. We are talking about 8,000. So the first 1,000 or 2,000 years of the Neolithic age. This was the age in which people, the Neolithic people, didn't know how to make pots. Can you imagine? Those people will not know how to make pots, but they will manage to make very sophisticated, very stylized animals, sculptures, reliefs, pictures. Unbelievable. It is hard to understand this. These are some of the Göbekli Tepe animals which are exhibited, the real statues of animals which are exhibited in the Museum of Archaeology in Şanlıurfa. This is another favorite of mine. Look at the details in the mouth of this animal. So beautiful. I mean, it is like this big. It would fit between my two hands. This is a bird statue from Nevali Çori. Lots of similarities between the two sides. But in Nevali Çori, there is also a residential area. There are homes for people, not only an enclosure like in Göbekli Tepe. Look at this, a boar. You can see the details. When we look at these human representations in the whole area of Göbekli Tepe, not only humans, sometimes animals as well, we notice that they are all male. A very masculine society. Except only one of the stones, we could say all the rest are male, but there is one stone which was also excavated in Göbekli Tepe belonging to a woman. A woman like squatting, and you see the very thin arms on the two sides. The breasts are on the two sides in here. The shape of the head is very interesting. It is maybe a different shape hair in here. And very strikingly, there is something coming out of her sexual organ, probably giving a birth to a baby. I'm going to take you to Chattel Hook now. Chattel Hook is a very important Neolithic site in central Anatolia, not too far away from Konya. And this is a baked clay statue of a woman, like this big. And this is from 5,500 BC, which means there's a time difference of like 4,000 years between this one and the woman picture in Göbekli Tepe. See this one, a big woman, probably an early form of the mother goddess of Anatolia, symbolizing fertility. That's why she has a big body. And she has a big belly and two big breasts, and she looks very strong, and she has two animals protecting her, and between her two legs there is a baby coming out, just like in the previous picture. Let's go back there. A baby coming out here, a baby coming out here. But there's a time difference for 4,000 years between these two women. I'm coming to the end of this presentation. After about 2,500 years in the Göbekli Tepe area, Göbekli Tepe people, or the Neolithic people in the upper Mesopotamia, sometimes because of pressure, they wanted to run away from pressure, sometimes looking for better alternatives, better living conditions, sometimes out of curiosity, were always in migration. Migration was not a problem anymore because they were able to put the seeds of crops in their pockets already. They were already capable of domesticating animals, so they would be able to carry their herds of animals from one place to another. So as a result, they started migrating around. 2,000 years later, they settled down in Chattel Hook. Chattel Hook appears to be one of the most important Neolithic sites in Anatolia. It is a big city rather than a small village. It is a big town. There is a layer for 17 meters, all houses made out of mud brick and built on top of each other. And the population of this city, its name is Chattel Hook, The population is not less than 7,000 or 6,000 people. We need to look at the evolution of the Neolithic people in the upcoming seminars probably. I would like to thank each one of you for your attention. I'm going to finish my presentation here now. I hope it has been helpful for you. If you found it helpful, I would kindly ask you to share it with your friends, and please follow me in YouTube. And if you want to see the recording of this seminar in my YouTube channel, Şerif Yenen, you can just follow my YouTube channel. And thank you very much, and have a great day, and happy Easter to our Christian friends also. Thank you very much.